Welcome, dear listeners, in a special broadcast brought to you once again by the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. Yes, indeed, tonight's program is going to resonate with all of us in South Africa. It is indeed the mob injustice. Yes, we call it mob injustice. For some reason, I know out there you've been calling it mob justice. We're going to know the difference between mob justice and mob injustice, because in the studio tonight we have two very powerful guests. That would be my chief, Max Mpuzana. He used to work here. In fact, he's drafted almost all the communication strategies that we can think about. Today, he is representing the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. Chief Max is not alone. Next to Chief Max, we have Lieutenant General Sharon Chafter. You know, she has the black belt in this particular topic because one might say she's from a province where you really pray to your gods for you to go where you want to go and come back being safe. It's a province that has been infested by gangsters, basically. I'm telling you, if we have a camera, in fact, you can check the general. There's no way you can say she's from that province. You can look at her. Tonight we're discussing mob injustice. Welcome, Max and General, to the program.
Thank you, Chief Lennox.
Before we go any further, I just want to tell the listeners who's panning our cameras, tilting our cameras tonight, is Nobubele. She has a black belt in this thing as well. The reason she's here doing this, when you don't find time to listen to the entire program, they are going to edit as a video unit this program, and you'll find it tomorrow in your YouTube. This is what they do. We utilize all the platforms. On the other side, we have a pilot for tonight. Indeed, he's a pilot by profession, but it's a pity there's no way I can fly in his plane. He's Karabo. He is flying, and he's flying our test tonight. And sitting next to Karabo, minding our telephones, is Lontlantla. They have black belts in this program. To kick the ball rolling, dear listeners, we are going to try and decipher and try and demystify the program between Max and the General. They are going to outline the objectives of tonight's program. I'm going to start with the General. Can you just outline the objectives of tonight's program, General?
Thank you very much, Lennox, and good evening to the listeners out there. Mob injustice is, in plain language, taking law into your own hands, not allowing the criminal justice process to be followed.
General, in my language, you will say we are giving someone in Klufa, we're telling them before they need to know what is it that we are going to be talking about. Just the overall objectives. What is it that we seek to achieve into tonight's program?
We want to define mob injustice specifically, looking at that, and then we want to highlight the Constitution's section on the right to life specifically, and explain the process of the South African criminal justice system.
Thanks, General. You see, the other thing that we want to do is to highlight the right to life as an inviolable right, a right that cannot be violated. As a country, we have decided that the right to life is sacred, and no one can violate that one. We want to also educate citizens about mob justice as criminal behavior. We also want government's call to encourage citizens to work hand in hand with law enforcement agencies to be understood by members of the public.
That was a mouthful. For instance, for you listening out there at home, Thank you once again for allowing us in your sitting rooms, dining rooms, and your cars, joining us in tonight's program. You will have an opportunity to ask questions. I'm sure there's so many questions you want to engage the General and Max around this particular issue. The number to call, if you are ready, Karabo is there, Nontanta is there to take your calls, is 0800 142 446. The number again, if you want to participate into tonight's program, the number to call is 0800 142 446. What that means, if you are calling from your landline, you can call and there will be no cent that will be charged to you. Government is subsidizing that call. Justice Department is subsidizing that call. The reason is simple. We want to say there's justice in South Africa. And if you are calling using your mobile phone, the colleagues will take your number and call you back. There's no way you are going to lose money for participating in this program. I don't know. We haven't started discussing. I can see you have callers there who want to take a bite. But before we open that, General, when we started, you wanted to try and contrast between these two concepts or phrases, mob justice and mob injustice. Is there a distinction? What is it? What is it that you can say about this?
Well, according to my recollection, there's no such thing as a mob justice. Because whatever the mob is doing is going to be unlawful, so it cannot be justice. But looking at mob injustice specifically is where people take the law into their own hands, where they do not allow the criminal justice process to be executed as per the Criminal Procedure Act specifically.
Okay. Chief Max, you must come in here before we lose what the General is saying. General is saying there's no such. It's a myth when you talk of mob injustice. I would like you to take this further, because some people might argue you used to have street committees, you know, people's power as it was defined then, where if one comes with some kind of anomic behavior, you will find group of people in a particular street or area effecting community arrest or citizenship arrest, taking this person to the police station or to wherever that needs to be. Now, can we, as we are defining mob justice, try and revisit the actions that at times might be taken by the responsible citizens to effect the citizenship arrest?
Thanks, Chief Lennox. I think let me first start by saying I agree with the General. Justice means fairness. Justice means following of a certain process. Now, with this thing that people call mob justice, it becomes a misnomer. You are saying you imply that there's justice by calling it mob justice. There is no justice at all there. It's just people who just gather into a crowd and attack a person whom they believe may be responsible for one offense or another. The person is not even allowed the time to explain their side of the story. Different factors are not taken into consideration as you would in a normal court that follows the justice process. Coming back to your question about our right as citizens of the country to effect an arrest against someone who behaves in an offensive way, that is still allowed in terms of our constitutional dispensation. Members of the public can effect an arrest, but you may not take it any further. You apprehend the person, you hand them over to the police, and then you then engage with the police, give them the reasons why you believe this person is responsible for the offense, and then people who are trained in criminal investigation, people who are trained in criminal prosecution, people who are trained in adjudicating on guilt and otherwise, will then take the process forward. Members of the public cannot on their own decide that someone, if I may come in with a personal story, I know a friend of mine who refuses to this day to wear soccer t-shirts because he was working somewhere in Tembisa wearing a Bafana Bafana t-shirt, and a mob thought he is the person who did something, because the person who did the crime or committed the offense was wearing a Bafana Bafana t-shirt. As you can imagine, if Bafana Bafana is playing, you will have 100 people in one community wearing Bafana Bafana t-shirts. So it's very easy to go for the wrong person. That's why we insist that community members do not have the right to use any force or to deal with any offenders. They are not trained to do that. They should give it over to trained people who are trained in implementing justice.
Talking about the trained personnel, now here is the thing. From time to time, we find ourselves as citizens or individuals doing something that really we did not necessarily think about. For instance, can we, for the benefit of the listeners, characterize the elements of what might be termed mob justice or mob injustice, so that people are not confused after this program? They know that this is mob justice or injustice I must stay away from. For instance, right now, peer pressure, we find ourselves doing what our friends are doing without knowing that, in fact, what we are doing is mob injustice or justice. What are the series or components that will justify an act to be mob justice or injustice?
I think, Lennox, mob injustice is something that comes automatic. It's normally not planned. So an incident will happen and a group of community will respond to the incident. Max has just indicated how they can affect the citizen's arrest, but they go beyond the arrest. They then start to use violence, where they then attack the person, and the person that gets injured, or they attack the person to death, and that becomes a crime in itself. And what we see, that when a group starts, the adrenaline, it really pumps, because then people are driven by their emotions, not even knowing what happened. They just join the crowd, and when they join the crowd and afterwards they find out what happened and things like that, they really don't know what they involve in when they do it at the time. It's only afterwards, when they start to thrash out things and the person is lying there helplessly, full of blood, seriously injured, that they will then collect and then see, but I've been involved in something, which was unlawful, which will give me a criminal record and things like that. So it's totally automatic. It is not planned. And it can be for a very serious incident or something that is not so serious too.
Before we go to the callers, Max, do you want to take a bite in terms of characterizing the mob justice or injustice?
Yeah. I think earlier you mentioned how in the past, before democracy, people would gather and deal with matters. I think there needs to be a differentiation between that era and this current era. At that point, we had an illegitimate system. Now we have a constitutional system, a constitution that the members of the South Africa contributed into developing. And it was adopted by our representatives in Parliament. So it is our document. So the laws that are in the Constitution are our laws. And therefore, there is no reason really why we should see the things that we saw a couple of weeks ago in Davidton, where this ugly thing of necklacing is rearing its ugly head into our society. I mean, it's very traumatic for most of us who saw these things in the 80s to see them back again. And if you look at the kinds of offenses that members of the public are deemed to have committed, you may find that the punishment of necklacing is totally disproportionate to the alleged crime. So, as I said earlier, members of the public are not equipped to deal with matters of this nature on their own. They need the assistance of people who will take into consideration the mitigating factors. I mean, if a good child can be influenced by drugs into stealing something, now does that mean that we should kill that person, or should we not rather seek help and find ways of ensuring that that poor child gets rehabilitation? So the kinds of things that we're seeing in society today are totally unacceptable.
Thank you, sir. Here's another thought that you've raised again, that we must not lose. At some point in time, we need to revisit. One, that has to do with what was called then organs of people's power, meaning that when people decided to take upon themselves to replace the government that they did not respect, the government that did not represent them, and come with alternative methods of dealing with what they believe the government of the day was failing. Again, the non-payment culture. You know, we need to revisit this so that people need to know ours is a constitutional democracy now. It was voted by the people. Before I do this, let's go to the lines. I'm told there's a caller. The caller, you're on the line.
Good evening, Lennox, and to your guest there in studio. I'm Ngunlego, Vikali calling from Radio Riverside in Upington. I just have 2 questions for your guest there. Lennox.
Hi, what there? Yes.
Yeah, most people are saying that they are taking the law into their own hands because police are taking forever to respond when called. That is in inverted commas now. Can this be used as an excuse? And also, how soon should the police attend to a scene after it was reported? And also, maybe if they can just be given a few examples as to why people actually take the law into their own hands. What causes people to get involved into mob injustice?
Yes, a very powerful question. Was that the only question?
That was all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. In fact, you see, you should be sitting here because those are very, very powerful questions. Thank you. We've got another caller. Okay. Here are 2 powerful questions. One relates really to what we're trying to address. What forces or compels people to do what we call mob injustice? And secondly, she is saying at times people do this because they feel police are taking time to effect the arrest or arrest people and release them. One of the two. So how long will the police act before it is too late? This is the gist of the question. Very powerful questions indeed. I know when we were talking before the program, there was an intention to deal with these things. If I may, Max, can we start with you? Because I know you are very vocal. I know Max is telling me, no, I must not ask him, I must ask the general. Okay, before we ask the general, let's take the caller.
Hello.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, you are on air, sir. You can ask your question.
Yeah, they were not calling more Limpopo.
Okay, what's your question then?
Before mob justice, the political leaders,
yes,
appointed leaders, they've been appointed without an experience because law has been followed before it about mob justice or a reporter. When you report, because those people have an experience or how to help you. By an emotion, because mob justice is straight upwards from minds tailoring being attracted by a certain motion, whether it's good or bad. But how can follow up a bad thing or not? Before mob justice happened, did they report now? Because the political party leaders, by another over 20 holes underneath of the team, instead of closing one hole, now they are waiting for all those holes to be punched. Then who was punching this hole, who was punching this hole? Because of one thing. Now, did these people report and who failed when we were reporting? Those leaders have failed. They wait for us to take laws into our own hands. Now they start pointing to us. And did they report? They say no. They did report, but our person didn't respond. That's where the problem is with our political leaders, because they are politically being appointed. That is why in economy they are failing.
Okay, thank you, sir. Was that the only question?
Yes, and another thing I know is out of your line, we are having a problem with the Chinese lawyers. So where do we report them? I know it's not for today, but we are so called the trainees. After that they promoted, then they don't serve us.
Thank you very much, sir. No. There's no wrong question. I can assure you there's no wrong question. We are sitting with Justice Department here. They will really answer your questions. At this point, okay, thank you very much for your very pertinent questions, sir. General, part of what was raised by the first caller, Nombulelo, had to do with the turnaround when a case has been reported. And according to her, at times this forces people to do what they do. Do you want to provide step by step in terms of what happens when a case is lodged?
Okay. When a caller, Lennox, when a caller calls the 10111 center, it will be, that message will be relayed to the police van that will then respond. Our response time for a mob justice while it's in execution, it all depends how far the police station is from the incident. We must know that we do have rural areas. Sometimes these areas are up to 40, 70 kilometers away from a police station. So that will impact on the response time. But when it's in an urban area where it is in close proximity of the police station, the response time, response time is any time between the call and 20 minutes. That's the response time. If the community and if they know that the mob justice is still in progress and there's no response within that 20 minutes, or it get more serious, they can call the 10111 again. And if they're not satisfied with the response, they can ask for the commander of the 10111 to speak to the commander and lodge immediately a complaint with the commander. If not, there is also a national number, 24-hour complaints number that they can call. That I will give you at the end of the program, that people can also call if they're not satisfied with the response of the police.
I'm sure, General, your response even answers the question, how soon or how long or what is the response time after an incident has been reported. You know, it could be a report or an incident about the mob justice that is unfolding, or it would be a report about an incident, someone has broken into someone's shop. So you are saying, depending to the proximity, or depending if one is in the rural area or urban, it will differ, but reasonably you are responding on time.
Within 20 minutes, that is when they are busy with the mob justice, when it's in execution.
Okay, to the point that people do not even have to resort to mob justice because you would have responded at the time that an issue has been reported.
We must remember that, you know, they just don't deal with one complaint at a time, that we do get a day thousands of complaints. And I will speak to the issue of hoax calls later on, because we do get those, and that hold up the system and also the response time. But when the police vehicle is standing off at a case where a child has been raped, and you've got to choose where does he go, so they will also prioritize prioritize the complaint when it comes in. Even if they got a housebreaking that happened this morning and it's only reported when the owner comes at home tonight, and they get a rape in progress or mob justice in progress, they would rather go to the rape or the mob justice in progress than to the housebreaking, which happened already and is not in progress. So we would prioritize those kind. And I can tell you, mob justice or injustice is really a priority for the police. We would like to be there as soon as we can. our people would leave a complaint where they are busy taking a statement and ask, we will come back, let us first go and attend to this one and then go back to an address. That's even how far people are going.
Before we go to the callers, Ntate Max, in your capacity as the justice field worker, now tell me, what do you say to people when they say we are justifying our taking the law into our own hands because of the response time of the police? What do we tell that person? Have that thought, ponder around that, because I'm told there's 2 callers there. You are on air, caller. Hello. Power to Kanyamazana. What's your question, sir?
Yes. We find it difficult to understand what is mob injustice or mob injustice now. I-government ngendlela isirula ngakhona nasebifika abadelive ngendlela efanele uthola abantu sebastrike and lokho kusemthethweni usokhumbula sibe sibuke nokuthi if njengoba kusemthethweni kustrike ba-vandalize into mphakathi before lento iba ku-strike kude labamonitor abantu ukuthi ma ustrike ustrike ngendlela so and so and so. It's like i-government isiniketa umthetho lokufanele sichube but bona bawufeyila from the first.
Powerful statement. Do you have another question, sir?
So far is this one.
Oh, thank you very much. Let's go to another caller. Yes, caller.
Molweni kunjani?
Ngikabaqabi qabla vele kanjalo kwetata.
Hayi ngiyaphila bawuclass nguphatho kwelicala.
Tata Patko.
From Alwa North ngibulise napheyana ku generally kuquka naye utata Max. Nginemibuzo nje embalwa mina ne.
Bono.
Okay.
Ja, goeienaand mevrouw.
Good evening, sir.
Baie bly weet nog vanaand nog. Ja, ek nog net paar vrae hier nog. Right, oorkala umbuzo wami uthi ek wil maar 8 vend nog.
Okay.
Julle doen nog die ek wil maar 8 vend nog. Julle doen die roadshow nog. Julle gaan die gemeenskap nog. Julle leer nog wat is killing nog. Dit nog die mob justice en injustice van nog. Ai maar 8 steeds nog. Vanam nog by die plek tot allemaal Noord separate. Die mensen nog, hulle ken niks aan die nog. As hulle sien nog die verkeerde denken maak nog. Hulle besluit nog, kom ons kan. Daar by die groot mensen. Want sê, jy ken dit en dit gedoen het. Even nog een pak like kry, miskien nog 10 lasjes, 15 lasjes. Sien jy daar? Miskien dat een paar mensen 20 maanden. En dan loopt met die vrouw mensen. Dat is mijn eerste vraag van mij daar nog. En dan, umbuzo wami wesibini ingaba ke ngoku amapolisa kuquka ne-Department of Justice bangayithintela njani i-mob justice ukuthi ingaqhubeki kwi-areas zethu ngoba uba ngabe uyaqaphela exesheni elininzi lento le yenziwa yintoni uma America ayikhankanya pha ngaphambilini ukuba izinto zenziwa ngalokhu hlobo ufana ukuthi ufonile iveni yadileya ubale kwi-police station xa ufike e-police station ufumana that bad attendance even phaa kwi-CSC ufumana ukuthi xa kumele kucela uncedo kuthiwa izane proof which is i-proof uzayifumana phi iyachaza nanku umntu ngoku apha evenkileni uqhekezile okanye nanku umntu ureyphile apha kuthiwa izane proof uzayifumana phi i-proof and then that person uyahamba iyabaleka that is why ufumana ukuthi i-mob justice kwiindawo zethu and then zithi zibe khona. I think imibuzo yami emibini leyo endinayo okwangoku.
Thank you very much, sir. Your eerste vraag nog is baie lang nog. We are going to have General nog die vrye nog. General, can you respond to that complicated long question by Patko?
Yes, thank you, Lennox. I think with regards to awareness programs, the question was with regards to awareness programs and what does the police do, whether we still do that. I can say that we've got a community policing strategy, and one of the pillars of the community policing strategy is community development and awareness raising. So we would very soon launch a campaign, Community in Blue, where we actually want the community to take part in, where we want all our neighborhood watches, our street committees, our rural safety committees, all our patrollers out there, where we would like them to be dressed in blue, so that we can have that kind of awareness, have awareness raising. We want to educate them how to deal with incidents of crime within the community. Currently, station commanders do have imbizos within their communities, within different sectors, where they will have interaction with communities, where problems can be addressed together with the communities. But on the roadshow, where we want to go is to go and educate specifically. You must remember, police is never a first responder to an incident. It is normally the community where it happens. So part of the roadshow and part of community in blue strategy that we're going to start with is to educate those patrollers, those neighborhood watchers, those CPFs on the ground, how to deal with a crime scene. So as soon as there's a crime scene, because we do find it difficult when a crime scene is being contaminated due to mob justice. So we're going to teach them how to preserve a crime scene and what to do in the meantime while they wait for the police, so that and that's part of our awareness raising. So I think it's a total training of community, development of community, specifically with regards to this issue.
I'm so worried. I get the sense that the callers are almost trying to justify why they do find themselves being part or witnessed incidents of mob justice. We cannot get tired. We are going to have to talk about this until at least at the end of this show. Over 5 million people that we believe are listening now will have a sense that no matter how tempting it is, we are not going to do it. Because even Badko talks about an attempt, I say an attempt to say, you go to the police station, they want the proof. That's why people are doing this. And a caller from Limpopo was talking about the poor training that he believes the politicians have, and then people end up doing this. Nonkululeko suggested, to a certain extent, the amount of time that police get to react on incidents that have been reported almost justifies people to do this thing. And Tata Max, I'm giving you an opportunity to discourage people for running and attempting to do this mob injustice and think that it is the right thing to do.
Thanks, Chief Lennox. You see, as South Africans, we are a society that's governed by laws. We need to agree, all of us, without exception, that there is no place in a democratic dispensation like ours where the rule of law operates for something like mob injustice. Even if you look at our own African traditional setting, where you have got traditional courts, makoro, you will have the accused person given the right to state their case. You will even have a mediator to speak on their behalf, and the punishment that is meted is usually considered by the council in that traditional. So there's nothing African about this mob injustice. It has got no basis in African culture. It's got no basis in African tradition. It's a very foreign thing that we should not embrace. People should learn to work with local police stations. The police belong to us. They are our police. We must work with them. And as General said, where there may be issues where people are not satisfied with how the police are servicing them, they should be able to, through the systems that have been set up. And I'm happy because the General told me earlier off air that she's responsible for setting up the police complaint system. So if members of the public are not satisfied with the way they believe the police are responding, they can then, through those mechanisms, raise whatever challenges they have. But the bottom line is mob injustice blurs the lines between the victim and the offender. By the time the police come into the scene, it's no longer clear who was violated first, because if we get there and people have banned a person, even if you say that person is the offender, all we see is the crime that you have now perpetrated, because it's not allowed for anyone to use violence in society.
You see, what I like about what we've just raised in Tatemex almost responds to what was raised by a caller from Mpuzana, that an incident will start where people are having a legitimate protest, and end of the day, this is overtaken by the people who will go out there and loot. I'm sure we need to find a way to talk against that. We've seen incidents of those. I'm not sure what influences that, but can you give an input in terms of what do you do when people were involved for embarking on a legal or protected strike, and there are people who are filtering into and they want to hijack this and start looting? What do you do?
Well, I think those organizers of the legitimate strikes are the ones that need to control it. They do need to put their marshals in place to make sure that they are not infiltrated by criminals, because surely they will be blamed if there's anything illegitimate going on. If they go from a protected strike to a looting, they will be blamed because they are the organizers. There are certain rules in terms of when they apply, in terms of how many people, the route they're going to take, who's all going to be involved, who are the marshals, and those kind of things. And they must make sure that they are very tight in terms of those organizing so that they cannot be infiltrated. They should have the people on the side to make sure that when they move through the area that has been approved, the streets, the route that has been approved, that they stay on that route and not go off from the route, because that is where they will be infiltrated.
Any input in Tatemex?
Yeah, I think it's important for us to also, because I think it was Zakele who raised the issue.
Yes.
Look, there is again no justification for people going on a rampage, destroying their own property. You can't say that because I don't have water, I'm going to ban the clinic. When children are sick tomorrow, where are you going to take them? So as society, we need to start taking ownership of our infrastructure. It's your property. Those clinics were built for you. Those schools were built for you. You shouldn't allow anyone, no matter how just they believe their cause is, to destroy public property. That property is your heritage. We should get to a point in South Africa where we can point to a school and say that school is 100 years old. Because when you destroy the school, now more money, where there was no money for water, will have to be found to rebuild that school. Now you are taking us back as a country, and we don't want that kind of those kinds of people do not have a place in the kind of South Africa that we're trying to build, and we need to, all of us, come together and speak against that. And it sounds like Zakele is one of those people who have got potential to lead in his community. He should lead in that direction and educate people against this kind of behavior.
On that note, straight to the callers. Caller, you're on air.
Hello, how are you?
Find our caller.
I'm okay. So you're speaking to Mpuzana. I phoned last week and I don't know what happened near Rainbow FM.
Okay, maybe this is your opportunity now. Let's give them that question. Let's give them that question, Mpuzana.
Okay, my question was, I have a sister who's in prison, and and now the community again is harassing my family and I, calling us murderers and names. We've been calling Mpuzana several times. There's nothing that they do. The only thing that we were able to do is a protection order. Even though we did a protection order, but they still continue to harass us. We call the cops again, but there's nothing that is happening.
Now, Sisiwam, I remember you last week, and we had a candidate lawyer sitting with us here, and she was trying to establish the facts of your story. I'm very happy that you came back, because what she said, basically, it is extremely difficult to issue a protection order to a mob, to many people, because a protection order is generally given to an individual to stop doing what they've been doing in case of harassing, if they've been harassing this person. But I'm not going to respond to your question. I have General here who's going to respond, and You will leave your numbers to our colleagues. If we are unable to exhaust your question, certainly someone is going to get in touch with you. But listen to Rainbow FM is doing a good job. You will get your answer. Was that the only question?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Isnombulelo. I'm very sorry about what is happening, but this government is a responsive government. I'm sure you will get the answer. Let's go to another question. Caller, you're on air. Yes, Ra.
Le kae mowe
O monate o jwa ntate.
awara na le nna ke le dumedishe ke la tlhelela ka la boshiwana
Kudu.
aga tetelo doctor le ba imbarela re ka le ka mogo ka kgonang go le ka go justify gore mob justice o diragala ka tsela ele e fela re gopole gore ke bana ba rena ba amega mo di mob justice ke ba no motšea ngwana mo tseleng ba re a no bona ditšhaba le tsamaya a fetša ile yena a pharile molato gona mowe yena a sa tsebe le gore o lwela eng fao e namile ke nto santse re lebetse go ya taba gore batho ba amega mo mob justice be ba tseba ntwe ba e yelang mowe o ka kwa gore motho wa mososo o diile selo se so a re eng re molateng ba le ka lešhaba ke nngwe le gore nga jale e batho ba boroko kudu mo mathibela mo sebitiela mo ba ile batho motho mongwe tšhajitšwe ebile o ka kgole go re bolela ga jale ka lebaka la go tsenela tšwetse le mob justice o tla khwetša le gore ebile a se yena thomileng gore a re molateng motho owe lapile re dieng dilo tša mohuta o mara ka se le ke o justifya mo dumellang le bona gore a ba ka no re fa ntšhanyana ya gore dilo tša mohuta o tshwanetse di berekiwang ka re ke bothata bo bogolo bo bo leng gona setšhaba re na le maikutlo re kukega maikutlo our feelings tends to go up when re kwa gore nto e rong e diagetsene ke lebaka le letelele motho owe re fetša re molatile e namile ra fetša re itšetše molao matsogong yeo ke fact re ka se nganyiše re idea jale ka batho.
Thank you. I know General here was taking notes. General is going to respond. She understood each and everything you said. No, I'm joking, General. And Datemex is going to take that one. But before we go to Datemex, we have on Facebook, Untate Tumelo Mbele, who's saying, what must we do really now to avoid mob injustice? Most of the time, again, that question comes, or statement, that police take too long to respond. We cannot afford to allow or let the community or the criminals to get away. Because what happens if the police takes time to respond? People go in there and contaminate the crime scene and probably beat or hit this person, and that person is going to get off scot-free. And now we are letting the criminals get away. This is Tumelo's on Facebook inputs. Datemex.
I think the important thing is something because I also heard the same call Yako Zebediel. It's along the same lines. Everyone is asking, what should we do? Look, if the police station in your area is dysfunctional, that is your problem. You must take ownership of the police station. You must make sure that the police station is functional. I mean, I'm here. General Jafta here is the head of visible policing. She's saying that they are prepared to get everything right in terms of how policing should work. And she's going to give us the number where listeners can call if police are not responsive and so on and so on. But over and above that, instead of doing the batahomu and going after people whose guilt has not yet been determined and attacking them, people should start working with their local police stations closely. They must take the issue of their safety and security into their own hands. They must form street committees. They must refuse to turn a blind eye on crime in their communities. This thing of hero worshipping criminals must end in communities. If you know that someone is selling nyaupe, report them. We must make it fashionable now to report people who commit crime in our communities. We need to work with our municipalities to make sure that the lighting in our areas works so that at night it can be safer. We need to connect with people in the community. we must take back the streets. We must not cower away from the park because those people who commit crime stay in the park. We must eject them from the park. But as well, we must start getting involved in community initiatives that engage the youth in productive activities. We must have after school lessons in mathematics and all other things that positively impact our young people. We cannot disown our communities. We must take ownership. We must be active as citizens, and we must also, it's allowed to have street patrols in this country. The only thing that we're saying you shouldn't do is that once you catch someone with a plasma TV, all you do is to arrest the person. Don't attack the person. Arrest him. Call the police. Police will come, hand the evidence over to the police, and police know what to do from that point onwards. This thing of just killing people because you suspect that they committed a crime is wrong. It's not something that is the responsibility of communities. So there's no justification whatsoever for mob injustice. What community members should do is to take responsibility for their own security, work closely with police, establish structures that fight crime in communities.
Coming loud and clear, dear listeners, there is no way you can outsource your safety. Take your safety into your own hands. And depending what we are hearing, but from where I'm sitting, I'm hearing both Max and the General saying, do something. Do something. It is not incorrect to do something, but as long as what we are doing is not mob injustice. You cannot say they told us if we're doing something, we're breaking the law. No. Do something. It's cool to report crime. When you it's an act of doing something when you report crime. Do something. We have two callers. Caller, you're on air. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, sir.
Yes, I'm okay. I'm listening through Radio Pushback page. My name is Simon Kuna.
Power to Pushback. Power to Simon. Your question, sir.
All right. My first question will be, who should praise the music when the mob injustice occurs? I mean, should the community leader who was influential during the mob injustice, or every community member ought to account?
Okay, that's one.
Okay.
I had a comma there. Is there another question?
Yes, there's another question.
Okay.
The last one. Could the CPF be charged with mob injustice?
Okay. CPF, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sure you're going to qualify that question. Should the CPF be charged for mob justice because?
I'm just asking because, I mean, in most cases, we find that the CPF, Community Police Forum, are the ones that are involved in mob injustice.
Is it? Okay, thank you. What's your name again, sir?
Simon Kuna.
Ndate Simon. Thank you very much, Ndate Simon. We have another caller. Caller, you're on air.
Good evening, Mr. Lex. How are you, Mr. Lennox?
Great, sir. If you are going to switch off or reduce the volume, we are going to be fine.
I'm good. I just want to ask Mr. Max a question here. Apart from the road shows that the department is doing, since you still continue to educate people about taking the law into their own hands, but things are still happening, do you have maybe any other plans in place to rectify this? And would you really say you are doing enough, the police is doing enough? Are people getting the service they are crying for? And the last question is, what is the role of the community in this regard?
Oh, powerful. You see, you're asking exactly what Max was saying. Two questions. One, do you think we're doing enough? Because no matter how we go out there and do the road shows, people continue to do these things, mob injustice. Now, what is it that the people can do? I know it's the topic that Max loves so much. The other question, I'm sure you heard the first question. Now, Max, I know you like that one. Empower the people here, what they must do. You are doing this, you are doing these shows, you are doing outreach programs, but people continue to do this. What is it that you think should happen?
Look, I think the starting point is that as we do this show, my brothers here, Simon Kouna and the latest caller, should know that they are becoming agents for change. As we talk to them and they understand our message, they should take the message into the communities. They should discourage communities from these bad things that are happening. And I think General will also respond to the first question about who faces the music. And from where I'm sitting, a crime is a crime. And as we're saying, once you commit an act of crime, even if it's a response to another crime, you become a criminal suspect yourself. So you lose that moral high ground that you had of being a victim. Suddenly you are also a crime and a criminal. And I know many people who are facing charges or languishing at our correctional facilities. A lot of potential that has been lost. People who were students now are facing charges or even sitting at correctional facilities because they decided to go with the mob. And we want to discourage that at all costs.
General.
Yes, with regards to specifically CPFs, the purpose of the CPF is to ensure that there's good community police relationships, and that we then have where we identify the root causes of crime. They assist us in dealing with the root cause of crime right where it happens. That's their role. If they are involved in crime like any other citizen, they should be dealt with in terms of the law. No one is above the law, not even police officers are above the law, so no one is above. Like Max has indicated, there would be a full investigation with every mob injustice incident. And if it's found that someone is linked to the case or to the crime scene, whether it is through DNA, whether it's through witnesses or whatever, that person will unfortunately be charged. And I also know of people personally who had good intentions, who had very good intentions to rid the community of crime. They then become involved in this and then become criminals, and the criminal that they were actually attacking goes scot-free at the end of the day, and that is not good for communities to accept. So then you're actually getting a criminal record where you are not a criminal.
General, I know this is a bit tricky. Last week we had a program here. This caller, Nombulelo from Rainbow in Roteport, called. The sister find herself in conflict with the law, and she was subsequently detained and arrested and charged. She's serving time. But now the community in Roteport, where the lady is listening, it's like they are unforgiving. They are terrorizing the house, they are terrorizing the parents, terrorizing the sisters. What is it that can be done? Can we find it? Do you think at some point maybe collective of the police and NPA and whoever can find time to go there and have some kind of imbizo and try and get this family and the community to talk and resolve their issues? Because the problem with the mob justice, you are unable to raise issues. They are coming to torment you, to harass you. What is it that can be done? Obviously, they are very tormented. They are very scared. At one point, they wanted to sell their house and leave. As a responsive government, what is it that we can do to meet her halfway?
Lennox, I will be very glad to take a particulars so that we can go and see the area and we can get the CPF involved in the community specifically and have an imbizo in the area to educate community. There is a process of reintegration where we can also get the correctional services on board with us. We do go out to communities and speak to the reintegration process. But in the meantime also, if she has got a protection order and there was a contravention of any of those conditions, she is supposed to then provide us with a sworn statement in terms of who broke what condition, because that's a court order that has not been complied with. So we do open a criminal case and a thorough investigation. But I think we should go the route of reintegration and have a program together with correctional services in the area. I'll be very glad to facilitate that.
Thank you very much, General Nombulelo. After this show, General is going to say hello to you and take your particulars and facilitate these interventions that we're talking about. I hope next week when we have this program, you will have something nice to report about. We expect your call to say, indeed, the General called and these are the plans, because this program is meant for that, to redress the wrongs. Ntate Max, someone spoke about the trainee lawyers that are unbecoming. Do you have a message to that caller? It was the caller from Limpopo.
Yeah. I know, I remember the question. Look, lawyers are basically a law firm is a business enterprise. So lawyers are independent of government. If you see, they say Lennox Chambers somewhere along Francis Bar Street, that person is running their own business. But the interesting thing about lawyers is that they've got a set of ethics that they need to follow. There's a code of practice that they need to follow. So when they break those codes of practice, there are bodies and institutions that hold them accountable. If you are found as a lawyer that you have broken the law, you can actually be struck off the roll of lawyers. So if Tate, I think it's Nkweng, feels that the conduct of those lawyers is not in line with what the conduct of lawyers should be, he should feel free to consult with the South African Law Society and report the matter. And I'm sure the Law Society will take the issue head on, and they will investigate, and if they find any sign of wrongdoing by the legal practitioner concerned, they will deal with it decisively.
From my side, I can safely say I'm so excited, because practically I can point in something that I can say this tonight's program achieved. General is going to talk to Sis Nombulelo and address her specific problem that has been troubling her. Now I'm giving you this opportunity, General, to give us your parting note. What is it that you believe by the end of these few seconds you would have loved the people to take from this program?
I think what I would like the public to take out there is to see how we can take hands and work together on the issue of safety, that they become involved in our structures, like our neighborhood watches, like our street committees, like the campaign that we're going to start very soon for the festive season, going into the festive season, Community in Blue campaign, that everyone get a hype around safety and be involved. Go to your closest police station if you want to know more about community programs, CPF involvement, neighborhood watch involvement, street committees, patrollers involvement. You will get the information right there.
Thank you very much, General. Ndate Max, your parting note. You showed me something great there. I would like to give you an opportunity to share it with the listeners.
Yeah, specifically to Ntate Nkweng, if the number to call for the Law Society of South Africa is 012-366-8800. 012-366-8800. You can call them during business hours, which is around 8 to 5 during the day, and they will be happily take your call. But more importantly, I think the most important thing is for South Africans to understand that we are a constitutional democracy, and we have committed ourselves to specific laws. The most important of those laws is the law, the right to life, which cannot be violated under any circumstances. So when community members take the law into their own hands and summarily beat up people, kill people, they are violating the very foundation of our democracy. And nobody is above the law. If you participate in criminal activities and you are found, you will be arrested and you will earn a criminal record, or you will even lose a very big portion of your life, because crimes like murder can range between 15 to 25 years. So a young person can really come back as an old person because of these things of taking the law into their own hands. When there are police officers, when there are structures like community policing forums that they can belong to and help deal with crimes in a manner that helps all of us in society.
On that societal note, we have come to the end of our special broadcast brought to you by Justice Department and GCIS. Let me scare the people who would be tempted to take the law into their own hands. You know what is called law of the jungle? Law of the jungle talks to the survival of the fittest. You might think we are fit, we are strong, we are tough. Wait until someone who's tougher than you come and unsettle you. And I'm telling you, who's going to defend you? People should begin to use their might, their strength to uplift the weaker ones. Otherwise, it will be the law of the jungle. No one wants to live there. And I choose to live in a democratic or constitutional democracy. Let's meet again next week when we bring you another topic. Let's talk justice. Bye.